Alright then guys, so I'm really delighted to see a full house here on day one of Wales and West Photography Show. Come on! Hey! Again, thank you very much for your patience. I'm so glad to see a full audience, and so today, as you can see by my talk here on the screen, I will be talking about astrophotography and our window to the universe. And so an interesting topic when we consider Wales, as I'm sure you guys will be familiar with. And so today I'll be talking about the wonders and to discover the secrets of the night. So just a bit of details about me then. So my name is Dury. I am a landscape astrophotographer, been invited here to Wales and West from Somerset, UK. So just over the other side of the bridge. And so I'm delighted to have the title, that is an internationally acclaimed, award-winning astrophotographer. What a mouthful. And so I'm also delighted with that to be now the best-selling author, speaker and writer. I also act as an ambassador for photographic brands Sigma and NiSi, who are here present today at the show. But these images as well, they have been endorsed by NASA, the European Space Agency, as well as an affiliation of National Geographic known as The World Night, and even a scientific journal, Nature. I also act as what's called a delegate for an organisation in the United States known as Dark Sky International. I'll go into a few more details of that in just a second. So, some of you might or might not know this image. Last year, this is the image that changed my photographic career. It was the one that was endorsed by none other than Apollo 11 astronaut Buzz Aldrin and our very own British astronaut Tim Peake, who went on board the International Space Station. This image here captures a meteor shower, which is known as the Perseids, which are visible during August, capturing the Milky Way as well, raining down on Stonehenge, and this is the one which got a lot of coverage and went viral across the world. But in other words, when I think about astrophotography, I'm very much in tune with our connection to the deep past and connections to ancient sites and that foreseeable connection with our own universe. But during my own travels as an astrophotographer, I've been lucky enough to see some incredible sights like the Northern Lights. In these talks, I like to engage my audiences, so put your hands up. Who has seen the Northern Lights? Yes! Pretty much a whole room full has seen them. That's wonderful. So not only from places like Iceland and typical Norway, but also here in the United Kingdom, southern England and Wales. Isn't that incredible? So other celestial events as well, like eclipses, that celestial dynamics of our connection with the sun and the moon. These are other incredible events to document. And this is also something that's really important, is that although these images are creative, they tell a story of science, and that's what I try and advocate for in my work. Even when we have comets which are visible in our night sky, think about other ways in which we can connect with them. So whether that be the Moai statues, these head sculptures on Easter Island, to dinosaur footprints, and thinking about that really strong visual connection with our past and the night sky. But in terms of astrophotography, okay, I just want to check here in the room, who's dabbled with taking photographs at the night sky? Put your hands up if you have. So a good portion of you have, right? I'll be honest with you, astrophotography, yes, it is a growing subject, but it is a technically competent practice, and so I like to try and break it down for you in bite-sized pieces, how you can do it yourself if you're interested. First of all, you'll see on the screen, right, the typical thing is the British weather. How do we get around this problem? My best answer to all of you is don't use just one weather app, use more than one. On my phone I've got about 15 weather apps because I'm just a bit like that, I'm afraid, but just check models. Each one says a different thing and you need to try and build up an average of what you're looking out for when you're planning a night shooting. So whether that be at a time in the calendar when the full moon is visible or the Milky Way, just to name a couple of subjects there. Also in terms of workflow. So we're using camera equipment, we're taking long exposures, which I'll go into in just a moment, but workflow processes as well. And so very often the question I'm asked is, what kind of equipment do I need? What sort of software do you use? And I'm pretty sure you guys have used Photoshop and Lightroom. These are some of the most classic pieces of software that we use to edit our astrophotos. They can be used to stack. So when we are using longer exposures, we use this software to stack multiple images to produce a clean, crisp image, which can be done with this software. Photo pills, put your hands up if you've heard of photo pills there. We use this piece of software to plan our images, so we know where the Milky Way is going to be at a certain time, and also some more technically competent pieces of equipment. These here on the screen, star trackers, some of you might have dabbled with those. In simple terms, these pieces of equipment track the night sky. So there are processes involved in which we align these pieces of equipment to the celestial pole, which is located near known constellations such as the Big Dipper, Little Dipper, Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, to the pole star Polaris. Once we align one of these pieces of equipment to that star, we can utilise longer exposures, we can get that young detail out of our images. So in terms of equipment, okay, these are just some of my top tips for anybody who has an interest in astrophotography, right? Focus on the glass first, not necessarily your camera. I see lots of photographers nowadays saying you need the latest camera. No, you don't. I would say, we've just got them over here, guys. Check out Sigma after the talk. They produce some beautiful glass, and I'm very fortunate to use their fleet of lenses. Why? Because they're fast. They let lots of light onto your camera, and you can also focus quite well in the dark because you're letting that light in effectively. That is what you want. But be prepared for compromise though. Quality glass means it's heavier, so you might have to pack your camera bags accordingly just to make sure you're prepared for a night shooting. And then also thinking about other options. This here is a lightweight version of that star tracker I showed you previously. It's a bit heavier, okay? But I work with this brand here called Move, Shoot, Move, and they produce a very lightweight alternative. It's called the Nomad. I recommend it, and have a little look up on your mobile phones while I'm chatting. Glass filters as well. Why do I use these? When you take images of the stars, because you focus into very defined pinpoints of light, they may not necessarily have that je ne sais quoi that you're looking for in your images. And this piece of glass, as you can see in the image, just bloats them a little bit more. It's an artistic effect. So I appreciate it's not to everybody's taste, but if you wish to go down that route, it is a viable option. Astrophotography, however, I must say to all of you, expect the unexpected. This image sums it up entirely. The total solar eclipse last year of the United States of America on April the 8th, one of the most anticipated celestial events of the year. I'm sure you guys will remember the total solar eclipse of 1999, a brilliant event. I was 2 years old then, so I completely remember it. But it's just, with what happened during this event was quite phenomenal. You go to Bristol Airport, get a flight connection from Bristol to Dublin to Dallas. The flight got cancelled 2 days before the solar eclipse. What do you do? And so, luckily, just by believing in yourself, having faith as a visual artist, get out there the day before and document. Well, really, one of the last total solar eclipses to be seen on US soil for over 30 years. And the opportunities from that to talk on BBC's The One Show, it was just phenomenal. But something I need to address is a newly emerging area in astrophotography, and it's our sustainable approaches to it, and the changes I have seen in just the past few months. I've taken this quote here from Gordon Parks himself: "Your camera is a weapon." Why? So I want to introduce you to the situation of documenting images at night. Astrophotography is is becoming a very popular subject. But in doing so at the same time, we're documenting more than ever before the consequences of what's called artificial light at night. This is light pollution, guys. This is the barrier that stops us from looking at the stars. It reduces the quality, or the contrast rather, of the Milky Way, and it's a newly emerging area in conservation. So not only are we being disconnected from our past and heritage, it's the situation of being as well. So not only is it affecting professional astronomical observations around the world, it's impacting wildlife conservation, and even us, human health. Let that sink in for just a second. This is the state of our country now. Light pollution across the United Kingdom, Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and as you can see there, areas indicated by red are areas where you can't see many stars at all. This graph here is what's called the Bortle scale index. Anywhere on this side, which is an 8 to 9, you can't see many stars at all, maybe 2 or 3 brighter stars if you're lucky. However, we work our way down the chart to those areas in greens and blues where we are reaching these much more better numbers, like the dark sky Bortle scale ones. So this is the state of affairs. If you look at the map, the only dark sky place we've got left here is north-western parts of the Highlands of Scotland. Let that absorb for a minute. But it doesn't end there, unfortunately. We have a newly emerging area of conservation called mega satellite constellations. I'm sure you've seen them, these trails of satellites that streak throughout the night sky. It's only going to get worse, I'm afraid. Already, these number of satellites are outnumbering the visible stars of each hemisphere, which is approximately 4,000 per hemisphere, north and south. And I must admit, however, it is a double-edged sword. We're in the 21st century now. We are powered and geared by internet. And so for that, there is the argument this is being used as a new area for Wi-Fi across the world and remote places, but look what it's doing to the sky. This is the story I'm trying to tell, is that these adverse effects that these modern projects are going to have to this profession. But also, astrophotography is changing as well. I'm even seeing now that there's photographers or other organisations claiming the Northern Lights as their own eclipses, even the stars. And so through that, this is from my lucky roots as a poor astronomer, that space is for everybody. And because astrophotography is a growing subject, everyone wants their little dab of it to have a go. But it's now putting pressure on dark sky places. This image, okay, of Dury and the Milky Way, I think I've seen photographed now about 100 or so times, counting on through on social media already this year. Where the subject is becoming more popular and not necessarily the right lights being used in the scenario, we're seeing more headlamps being used. It's adding to light pollution in dark sky places. This is why I'm creating a voice now for sustainable astrophotography and what each and every one of us can do to responsibly look after our dark sky environment. And also this attitude now, following the mainstream, because you see a photograph of the Milky Way and Dury, I got to do it. But maybe we can look at taking photographs maybe from a different angle, or taking a photograph of something entirely different. Social media pressure as well, we all flick for our mobile phones now. I'm pretty certain most of us are impacted by social media. We see these images, we feel the pressure. Every night we've got to be out taking images of the stars. No, you don't. You're a visual artist, you do what you want. With great power comes great responsibility. The future of these places is in our hands. When we take that image, we're encouraging more pressure and demand on these places. How do we do that exactly? Through this initiative, which I'm lucky to be a part of, it's called Dark Sky International. If you guys have got your phones with QR codes on your mobile phones, give these guys a scan now. They are setting out newly established approaches to sustainable astrophotography, from using red headlight torches so that's in low light environments, so it doesn't distract local wildlife around you, but also core values, just being respectful of other photographers in your space when capturing images and sharing the wonders of the night. But as I've said multiple times in this talk already, astrophotography, unfortunately, is no longer a niche. The market is fairly saturated. So with that, these classic images from Kurgfell in Iceland to the beautiful trees in Madagascar, they've been taken before. So I wouldn't expect necessarily for these images to be award-winning images. But don't let it stop you though. If you want to take these images, do so. But you need to come up with some creativity to take some shots of our images. I like using that word, as you probably do best. Write your own story. And this is it, right? I've learned this real hard this year, is do it for yourself. Come up with something new in your images. Why do you want to be taking regurgitated images? How is your image different from that and everybody else's? What is the story you are trying to tell in your images? And most importantly, what is it you, the photographer, has to say? But most importantly, I've learned this really hard as well for the past number of years. Don't be put off by numbers in competition. When you're looking at numbers, yeah, it does put off upcoming talent very easily. It's the modern life pressure, as I've mentioned here in the slides. Numbers and likes, that's what it's to do with. And as I've also mentioned here, you know, we see photographers who we aspire to, but do want to help, do want to support them. What's the definition of a role model nowadays? Something to think about. What's the definition of community? That's why I say you have to do it for yourself. Like with this image here, okay? Easter Island. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with it. But to capture a solar eclipse that wouldn't be seen again for 312 years. Big numbers. But I learned this isn't just about, you know, putting an image out there and hope for the best. This was a story of friendship. This was people who really wanted to help you to get to some very restricted areas on the island, UNESCO World Heritage status, all that sort of situation. But all these people here at the bottom of the slide helped me get to that point to take the image from this location. So sometimes it's just remembering photos are there for different reasons. So I'm also delighted with this image here, capturing the Milky Way over the iconic head statues of Easter Island. It was endorsed as NASA's astronomy picture of the day in November. If you want to have a look at this on the nasa.gov website, scan this QR code now and that will take you to the main page. I've also learned as well, with peer pressure demand and what's been going on in the astrophotography landscape, it's okay to take a break. And so the one thing I must mention to all of you is this piece of advice by Banksy. I'll just read that to you now. If you get tired, learn to rest, not quit. If you're changed me as an astrophotographer this year, slow down the process and rethink what is it you're trying to do. As a photographer, you're constantly evolving as you have these breaks, which ultimately change you over time. As I mentioned before, just run for you quick, just being kind and respectful nowadays, not standing in front of another photographer also taking images. Light painting as well, shining your light on subjects, just like to be aware of, leaving no trace, no litter please, and also treat our dark sky places with respect. We're losing them already, so let's look after them, shall we? Right now, I'm also delighted to announce that this book has recently been engaged as the #1 UK bestseller on Amazon UK. 52 assignments, night photography, and so this is my first published book. And so through that, I'm able to set 52 projects. So one project a week if you like to, but it's aimed at avid and professional photographers. So a book that embraces sustainable astrophotography, so we take care of our environments at night, as well as embracing the possibilities of your camera as well. And again, to tackle this radical norm image of the astrophotography community. So here it was, that moment, you go into your Waterstones brand, and there it is! Pretty amazing. And Sarah, there we are on the screenshot, #1 UK bestseller, phenomenal. And so guys, I'm just Dury, Landscape Astrophotographer. Thank you very much for coming to my talk today. I have copies of the book here for sale if you like to. Otherwise, thank you for being such a lovely and patient audience as well. It means a lot. So thank you very much, guys. Thank you.